Here's the New Hampshire poll from Emerson yesterday that shows just how irrelevant, I believe this, you may disagree, Joe Biden's approval ratings a year out may be. In New Hampshire, his approval rating, according to a recent Emerson poll, is 37%. But you match him up against Donald Trump. Don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative, as President Biden says. It's not even close. You have been steadfast in telling Democrats to stop whining, stop worrying, and get to work. You still feel that way?
I do, Joe, and you talked about this in the last block. Like right now, he's running against the almighty, but next year it'll be a choice between two very defined, very clear candidates in Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And guess what? We've already had that election, and it's clear that Joe Biden won that election and will win this again. I'm not being Pollyannish. I'm not saying this is going to be easy, because it's not. But we know that a year ago, a year out, these polls are just absolute garbage. Mika showed the 2011. The famous Nate Silver put us on the cover of the New York Times and said Obama was toast, and he had a 17% chance to win. And we won handily, from what I remember. And so that's why these polls are just garbage. In the end, this is a choice between two very different things. The other thing, Mika's right, we have democracy, and we also have the issue of abortion. In 2023, in over 20 elections around the country, Democrats overperformed by 9 points in elections all over the country because of the issue of abortion. So you put democracy and abortion together, and it's just another reason why I think the choice next year is just going to be very clear.
Yeah, and Mike, I mean, saying that Barack Obama had a 17% chance of re-election in 2011, I mean, it's crazy. It's kind of like the ESPN tracker saying Alabama only has a 21% chance of getting into the playoffs. We're not only going to get into the playoffs, we're going to win the national championship. You can't predict things ahead of time. And Roll Tide, by the way. Can you believe that? They're number 8. Best team in the nation. They're number 8.
They're not the best team in the nation.
Oh, my God. You haven't been watching them. There's not a close second. You know what? They better buckle their chin straps in Georgia when they go into the
Mercedes-Benz.
The Mercedes.
I think Michigan might be better than.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my God.
Better than the SEC.
You know what? Do you think it's 1974? Bo Schembechler is gone. Woody Hayes is gone. The Big Ten.
It's the SEC, baby.
It's not even close.
Okay, we're going to find out.
Last year,
if they put Alabama in, the fact, again, they're number 8 when they have the best team in the nation. And they do. You look at Tennessee, you look at LSU, you look at this team. Willie, I'm not a front runner. I'm always talking about how bad my teams are. In this case, they kept us out last year, and I know this is about the future of democracy. I'm just a little pissed off right now. They kept us out last year so TCU could go in. And I kept saying, wait a second, TCU, what are you talking about? They're going to get destroyed. Everybody goes, you have 2 losses, and they have. Is it about the best team? Or is it about these people like Oregon? My God, Oregon's like, what, are they 0-3 against ranked teams? 0-2 against ranked teams?
They only got 1 loss this year.
Joke.
Alabama has a chance to show it. They're going to play the SEC championship.
Well, exactly.
If they beat Georgia, then there's no debate anymore.
Want to get back to democracy?
Well,
real quick,
there shouldn't be a debate.
In the semifinal last year, TCU beat Michigan.
Yeah.
A week later, Georgia beat TCU 65-7.
Yeah.
Rest my case about the SEC.
Come on.
Go ahead.
That was last year.
By the way, while we're talking sports, Mike, I know democracy is really important, but we kick around poor Willie here way too much. Let's just talk really quickly about one thing that went right for the New York Yankees.
Got one thing.
This guy has come through for the Yankees.
Lemire and I were talking about it earlier off camera. Garrett Cole. Listen, he's not my favorite guy in the world, but I got to tell you, I want him on my team. He takes the ball every 5th day. He gives you over 200 innings. I don't care whether he's a Yankee or whatever. I admire that.
He's my favorite guy in the world. He wins every time he goes out.
Yeah, but do they need his manager?
The Yankees have had a horrible year. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
He doesn't whine. He goes out. He keeps his head down. He focuses on pitch after pitch after pitch.
He was 15-4, probably should have been about 22-4. He lost close games because they didn't score for him, never said a word, gets the ball. Blake Snell, by the way, won in the National League as well.
120.
So,
Whatever.
let's turn the page.
Go Yankees.
Let's bring in the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, Jimmy was just talking about 2011, 2012, the polls and everything like that. The polls right now, my view would be they're like snapshots of last night's sunset. You got another sunset coming tonight. But my question to you is there seems to be not opposition to President Biden, but an indifference towards President Biden with all that's going to be at risk in next year's election. Indifference among the minority community.
It frames
Hispanic.
the challenge. It frames the challenge, and it is about messaging. And messaging is not just talking about what you're doing. It's reminding people about the condition of the nation you inherited. 15 million people out of work. A recession. Joe Biden inherited a recession. The last 3 Republican presidents have left recessions behind for Democratic presidents to clean up. You've got to contextualize your accomplishments and not suggest that you've accomplished all your goals. And then you got to talk about unfinished business. So in the black community, police reform is unfinished business. Gun safety is unfinished business. The Voting Rights Act that Joe Manchin supported but would not create a narrow exception to the filibuster to allow us to get it through the Senate is unfinished business. So on one hand, here's what we've accomplished. Here is what we've done. So you got to say, here's the condition of things when we took over. You have got to remind and articulate, because what you're running against is the guy that left a mess.
And by the way, the unfinished business.
The mess.
The unfinished business was business Biden fought for, but Republicans blocked.
Precisely,
every step
Joe.
away.
So
the
you've
John
got to-
Lewis Voting Rights Act, you name
So
it.
when
you go down the list.
When people say, by the way, what about this unfinished business? Joe, Mr. President, did you fight? Did you fight hard enough? He's got to say, I'll continue to fight for it, but remind people it was a Republican filibuster that blocked voting rights, that blocked police reform, that continues to block gun safety legislation. So it's a 3-part thing. 1, here's the condition of the country when I took over. Number 2, here are the things we've done to fulfill our commitments and promises to you. And 3, here's the unfinished business. Democracy versus autocracy. The economy of today, not perfect, many people suffering, but not 15 million people out of work. So you've got to contextualize. This is about a narrative. You got to remind people, you're not running against yourself. You're not running just on your record. You're running against the guy that left the mess. You're running against the guy that orchestrated January 6th. You're running against the guy that left millions of Americans out of work. And if you don't do that, you've got to tell the story. People have a short attention span. Yep. And if you don't create a picture and a narrative, people can get lost in my condition today. So people are suffering, or things are difficult. Housing costs are high. Money does not go as far as people want it to go. But then therein lies the debate on the policies of the future to try to ameliorate and correct that.
So, Jim Messina, you obviously know about running a Democratic president's reelection campaign. Weigh in, if you will, as what you've seen from the Biden team in recent months. They spent a lot of money earlier this year trying to boost the president's approval ratings. It was pro-Biden spending. Seems like they're shifting tactics now and really trying to focus on negative on Trump, really drawing contrast every chance they get. What do you think the best strategy is?
Well, Jonathan, this is the greatest block I've ever been a part of because it combines my 2 true loves, college football and politics. And Joe is skipping the part where the Texas Longhorns went into Tuscaloosa and beat down the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Beat down.
No
you
one
had
is
a guy
gonna beat
that had
Georgia.
never played quarterback before. Now, you don't want any peace. I hope the Longhorns are unfortunate enough to go up against Jalen Milrose again. Because that guy, you talk about what he did to LSU. I mean, what he did to Tennessee? Come on.
Good. Come on. How you like that?
Bring them on, baby.
But how do you like that LSU
Jaden
quarterback?
Daniels.
Oh, Jaden Daniels.
Is he a first-round pick? Is he a first pick?
Might have played his way in.
As long as he doesn't have to play against Alabama, he'll do just fine. I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
You were saying, Jim.
Yeah, here my prediction, and I don't want this, Joe, but it's going to be a three-peat for the Dogs. I think it's very tough. But back to politics.
So how do they lose as badly as they're going to lose in the SEC championship game and still win the national championship? I don't understand that, Jim.
Although, don't you think both teams get in? 2 one-loss SEC teams have to get in.
Alabama wins.
It depends on how badly Alabama beats Georgia. If it's close, if it's within 30 points, I think both get in.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm not great. But anyway, Jim, go ahead. Talk about the future of democracy.
Oh, yeah.
Is democracy going to win next year? And what do you say to the bedwetters, the Democratic bedwetters all across Washington, D.C. right now?
Calm down, go to a swing state and organize. There are 7 states that's going to matter here. But Jonathan asked me what I think about the Biden strategy. And, it goes back to the mayor's point. I think the mayor's exactly right. This is about 2 things right now. First is talking to the base. And the Biden campaign has the largest buy this far out to African-American, Latino, and young voters that we've ever seen. You go into these battleground states and all you see is the Biden campaign on TV talking to those groups. And then 2, they've been out there laying down an economic track. They need to continue to do that. They have not yet switched to the thing that Joe and I think is going to win the election, which is the contrast with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, because right now they want to win the economic narrative. And they're going to continue to lay that through the first of the year. And about the time that Trump gets a nomination early in next year, they'll go to that contrast. So I think they're doing what they have to do. The polls are not going to move yet. The choice is not clear, but they will next year. And the Biden campaign is staying focused on what they have to do, much like the Georgia Bulldogs.
So, Jim, what about this fascinating dynamic?
I don't understand. Go ahead.
This dynamic of third-party candidates. Bobby Kennedy Jr. is not going to get 20% where he's polling in some of these polls. But if Joe Manchin gets in and Jill Stein's there and they start to sort of bite around the edges of the vote here, how big a concern should that be to the Biden campaign?
Look, this is a place where I do a little bedwetting. When I'm sitting up at night, this is the thing I worry about. If Joe Manchin decides he wants to run on a third-party ticket, that could elect Donald Trump. And we need to be very clear about some of these third-party candidacies. I think RFK Jr. is different. I think he's speaking at CPAC. He's talking about MAGA stuff. I think in the end he takes votes away from Trump, not Biden. But I think a third party with a Democrat on it could be difficult, and that's why I've been so critical of these stupid efforts. When people want to play around with American politics, we could actually get rid of democracy in the middle of this. So I think we need to be very, very careful about what we do, because Mika's right. This is about democracy.